Well, oftentimes when you look at Chattanooga, you're probably looking at maybe two cities to a large extent. You're looking at the haves and you're looking at the have-nots. It's been said that there's no black middle class, for example, and when you look at it maybe from the standpoint of just actual dollars, depending on how you look at the socioeconomic scale, uh, there may be some relevance in that. I'm not sure the exactness of that, but that's just for conversation purposes. Let's just say that there may be some semblance of relevance in that statement. Well, I think what has to happen is that there is inequality basically in the wage scale. Whether it deals with gender or whether it deals with race. Race is really explicit as such. We basically did a study not too long ago regarding what we call the C-suite. And one of the challenges that the Urban League had was that the Urban League historically was built on inclusivity. The Urban League has always been an integrated organization, from our trustees all the way down to our staff. And one of the things that we had done was that we were looking around and we were looking at to determine basically where were the people of color that represented senior management in the corporate structure of the community that we could begin to bring on the board for succession planning within the trustee ranks. And we looked around and we couldn't find them. Whereas heretofore, you looked at DuPont, you looked at the school superintendency, you looked at the medical community, particularly hospitals. You could look at a number of different institutions, both public and private, in the city, and you had people of color that were running these institutions. But all of a sudden, over the last, let's say, I think it was 10 years that we did the study, we looked and we saw there was nobody there, so to speak, not in absolute terms, but there was no one there. So we determined from the data, and this was verified in the study. So we determined we have a problem, and seemed like that was trending not only for Chattanooga. We compared it with a number of different cities within the state, and so really, Robert, what we have determined is that that had a whole lot of roots to it, not just locally, but nationally as well, because of the national political climate as such. And so, what we determined was that based upon the national political climate, uh, we have a whole lot of work to do regarding the whole issue of inclusivity. Education, obviously, is a part of that. From the standpoint, we thought we had gotten over some things, during the era of the civil rights movement. We made a whole lot of progress, and we did, but we still have a long way to go, particularly from the standpoint of dealing with the whole black-white issue and things of that nature. So we are basically saying to ourselves, uh, we've got to get back to the table. We've got to have some more conversations. We've got to do some more fundamental work as such in terms of sharing space in this world and basically working it out to the extent that everybody has value, and maybe looking at it from some different perspectives. From this time on, from this point on, the way we have looked at approaching the whole business inclusivity, particularly from a private perspective, particularly when it comes to industry, what we have basically shared with our corporate partners was from the standpoint of looking at it like this. Don't look at it from the standpoint of affirmative action. Look at it now from the standpoint of market share. When you look at the world and where the world is going, what do future population trends look like? Well, future population trends look like there are going to be more people of color in the world than anybody else. So when you look at that from the standpoint of products and services and where the sales are going, it makes sense to look at it from a bottom line perspective, from the standpoint of market share. So it just makes sense then to look at inclusivity from the standpoint of market share. Therefore, it just makes good business sense. So as opposed to looking at this from the standpoint as the right thing to do, because we no longer look at things now from the standpoint as the right thing to do. Look at it from the stand. If you're going to look at it from a pure business perspective, look at it from the standpoint of market share perspective. So we're looking at things now, we're approaching subjects now from a little different perspective, and just taking a little educated perspective in terms of our viewpoint. So we still have a long way to go in the community. We've come a long way. But from the standpoint of people having the ability to take advantage of the progress that the city has made on an economic scale, we got a lot. We got a lot of growth that needs to take place from the standpoint of understanding and making sure that in order for everybody maybe to maybe grow as the community has grown, there have to be some intentional efforts in that direction as opposed to just assuming that they're going to automatically take place.